You're listening to the 40 Thrive Podcast, the show created for women 40 and beyond, ready to shake things up. And now, your host, Jackie McDougall.
Welcome to another episode of 40 Thrive. Let me ask you, have you hit that subscribe, follow, or favorite button wherever you get your podcasts? If you haven't, do it now. You'll never have to search for 40 Thrive again. And if you find yourself with a free 3 minutes or so, please feel free to share an honest rating and review. This show was created for you, so we want to know, what do you love? What do you want more of? Help us out so we can create the best possible show for you. We got a great episode for you today. I am talking with Stephanie Dodier. She is a clinical nutritionist and certified intuitive eating counselor, a speaker, a podcast host, and creator of the Going Beyond the Food method. Stephanie's first diet was at 12 years old. How many of us can relate to that? Raising my hand right now, I think my first diet was at 9 years old. Her 25-year dieting career is what is fueling her passion. She shares her personal journey as a source of inspiration while educating and empowering women to reconnect with their power and live their life to the fullest. In this episode, we tackle so many things: what intuitive eating is and what it isn't, understanding diet culture and how it's creating needless suffering. Let me say that again. Needless suffering. How good girl syndrome plays into how we show up in the world. Body positivity and why it's the topic of some major debate. Fat phobia, the problem with BMI measurements. Oh my gosh, there is so much in this. I learned a lot. And this episode has challenged my views, and I think they might challenge yours too. As always, any episode of 40 Thrive is meant for education, entertainment. If you have a health issue or you're starting something new, always consult a medical professional, do your research, all that good stuff. I am definitely continuing this conversation in our free and private Facebook group, so head on over there after you listen and join us. If you don't have the link, it's right here in the show notes, or visit 40thrive.com/episode 103. I'd love to have you join us in the group, and I want to hear all your thoughts on this episode. So make sure you come on over and share it. And if you're not on Facebook, always feel free to email us at hello@40thrive.com. All right, let's dive in. My conversation with Stephanie Dodier. Stephanie, welcome to 40 Thrive.
I'm excited to be here and meet your audience.
They need to just sit right back and be excited to meet you, because I did a little cyber stalking of you. We talked a little bit before we started. I just love your message.
Oh, thank you.
There are so many women, especially over 40, who are so afraid to show up on social media or even in their own lives. And you're like, F that noise, I'm showing up.
Yes. Can we swear here?
Yes, we can. Have you always been like that?
I've always been like that. In my second life of my life, I went back in therapy and went through all the phases of my life. Mm-hmm. And I think I was just born with that rebellious mindset. I remember memories way back to when I was 15 years old, standing up to my father and having conversation about politics with like such a different opinion, right? I was born to be like the oddball. So here I am.
I think sometimes we're born to be certain things and we fight it.
Yes.
So the fact that you own it.
Like, I'm at that point in my life, I'm 46. I'm at that point in my life, I'm like, you know what? There's no point of not being who you are.
Yes, I love that. So let's talk about what you do. And of course, who you are is all over what you do. Like, you can see it on your social channels and your work and all of that. I have to say there are a few things that stood out. You know, I mentioned your bio in the top. Intuitive eating, that is, I think, a buzz phrase right now where people use that. But does anyone really know what it means? Can you explain that a little bit?
I know what it means.
Do you, Stephanie, know what it means?
Yeah. So this is a good point. So intuitive eating right now, if you look at Google trend and marketing, it's trending to be the next quote, diet, end of quote. Like, it's the next nutrition trend. And I think it has a lot to do with the evolution of women realizing that this whole ideal of body and being thin and dieting doesn't work. And women's are like, then what? Like, if I don't diet, if I don't restrict, what am I going to do? So intuitive eating is coming in the forefront. So we see that in a lot of places, but it's not what you're hearing and seeing is not always the right thing. So let me tell you what intuitive eating is.
Great.
Intuitive eating is the natural way of engaging with food when we were born. So I want to channel a female here. Most of us are familiar with children. We either cared for children or had children.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that when a baby is born, it naturally knows how much to eat and when to eat.
Yes.
It cries, right? Cry, put it on the breast or the bottle. And when the baby is done, when it's full, there's no way you can force feed the baby, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hunger, fullness cue. So babies are born with hunger and fullness. And by the age of 3 or 4 years old, they develop personal taste, satisfaction. So hunger, fullness, and satisfaction are the 3 innate eating cues that all humans have.
Okay.
And we have that until we meet our first diet.
Mm.
And then everything gets distorted. And then we go
Yes.
down a path of no longer following our hunger or fullness and being ashamed of being satisfied. And then intuitive eating, the process of relearning to becoming a natural eater. That's what you're seeing on social media as intuitive eating, is that process of winding back the clock.
I love that.
So it's the innate eating cue. It's a self-care way of eating.
Right. How are they misrepresenting intuitive eating online right now?
So are you familiar with the word diet culture?
Yes.
Okay. So can we just
but
give
feel free to break that down.
because it's another buzzword that's coming up.
Yes.
And it's very, I believe personally, fundamentally as women, we should be taught in school what diet culture means. And that would prevent a lot of our suffering. So diet culture is a system of belief that places a person's value based on their body size, their beauty, or their health status.
Okay.
It's an entire system of belief, meaning there's industries behind that, weight loss industry, the beauty industry, the aging industry behind that, sustaining and upholding the value. Hence where we see women chasing a smaller body, looking younger. And then what we know as patriarchy, which is the system which put the gender of male superior to female, which most women are familiar with. Diet culture helps uphold patriarchy because it says to the woman, to be valuable in this society, you must look this way, you must be this size, and you must do everything to be healthy. So diet culture as a system is co-opting now over the last year intuitive eating to bring it into the world of dieting.
Interesting.
So now we're seeing intuitive eating for weight loss or intuitive eating low carb, like all these crazy things that have nothing to do with intuitive eating,
right?
But with diet culture.
Because they know that the Google AdWords are intuitive eating. So why would they not jump on to leverage themselves during this time?
Yeah, because the weight loss industry is like, we can get into a whole bunch of feminist conversation, but the weight loss industry is only surviving because women are willing to spend money.
Right.
So now the awakening that we're starting to see is more and more women are saying like, I don't want to diet no more. I don't want to buy your program. Like, I don't want to restrict myself. And the sales are going down. So the diet industry is like, okay, so what's my next move?
Right.
Right. And that's where the whole wellness dieting comes in and co-opting diet culture and co-opting health as a mean of keeping the industry going. It's basic corporate sales, right?
Right. You touched upon something that I definitely wanted to ask you about because you talk about feminism, being a feminist in your work. And I was like, wait, how do you tie that in? But is that because of the weight loss culture? So dive into that a little bit more.
Absolutely. So as a feminist, we are here, or we believe that we should claim back our power through the various systems that have been built around women to control women and suppress women. We've done that with we can go back to the late 1800s, the right to own land, and then we went into the right to vote. And then 40 or 50 years ago, we earned the right of having our own bank account. Think about that. Like,
right. Yeah. During our time, during our lives, women could not have a credit card without a man co-signing. During our time.
Mind blowing. Like, I'm like tapping my head, but like when I was educated on this, the story of women's history, I'm like, wow, my mom, that's my mom. Right. So, and now we're saying, so we have claimed back our power.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're into the world of our own body. Mm. Right now, as we stand, for most unconscious women, like I was 8 years ago, I wasn't in control of my body. I thought I was, right? Mm. But I kept chasing a smaller and a smaller and a smaller body and a more beautiful body. I was not free to be who I was and to let my body be who my body was, always trying to achieve beauty standards from patriarchy. To me, that's the next level of feminism, is us as women taking down the diet industry and the beauty industry so we can be free in our own body.
Right. I agree that, I mean, there are systems in place that have just been in place. That's just how the world has worked. Yeah. That being said, I find more, at least in my experience, women critical of the appearance of other women. So how do you speak to that?
Well, so this is when we have the conversation. Well, you're free to be who you are. To a certain degree, yes, I am free, but I'm not free in my mind. The way my mind was socialized. So all of us as women, we are born with, to call it a neutral brain. And then as we grow up in our family circle and our friends and system, we are fed the way we should be, right?
Yes. Yes.
That's what I call the good girl syndrome.
Yes. I just heard you talking about that recently. So good.
Right. So, and this is I have learned that through my own journey in therapy. Like, this is a known syndrome in psychology where women are trained, what we call socialized. From the time we get our first Barbie doll and our first doll, and we're told, like, be smart, but don't talk too loud. Like, I was in the corporate world for 15 years, and nearly every single of my review had a note: you wear your emotion on your sleeve. You're too loud. Because I wasn't afraid of speaking my mind in a meeting.
Right.
But as a woman, that's not good. Like, you're not being a good girl.
Yeah.
So we're socialized to this way of being at women, which comes with a standard of body. So we are free to be who we want to be. Like, we're free of not putting hair colors on, but we are our own critic through the socialization and the internalization of these beliefs we've been taught.
Right.
So the process of liberation in 2021 for women is not through fighting for rules or government laws for our equality. It's in our own mind. We need to free ourselves in our mind.
Yes. This is what I'm hearing, is that society has basically programmed us. And then we take that judgment not only of ourselves, but we put it on each other.
Absolutely.
Oh, man.
Because in a way, right, when someone is not content with who they are, and as women with our own body, we project that on others.
Yes.
And that applies to everything in life, including body and beauty, right? So you'll sit with a bunch of girlfriends and then you'll talk about this person's hair color or the latest diet that this one did, or right?
Yes.
Because we're not comfortable with who we are. In my circle, people who do the work that I do, we never talk about that because we've done the work. So the conversation is completely different just because we have no interest on other people's beauty or body size.
Right.
It all comes back to what's in your mind at that moment.
It's so interesting because we do that, even like little babies' chubby knees or, toddlers, like whatever. And then it just grows up where we're commenting on other people's appearance. Like one of my sons is tall and thin, and people feel free to tell him as if he doesn't have a mirror, that he's tall and he's thin. It's just so fascinating. You're absolutely right. And so when we own who we are and what we look like and we're proud of it, I do notice if there's a woman who walks in the room and she's just confident, you can't help but be attracted to her. But at the same time, if you haven't done the work, I see on Instagram where people talk about body positivity, which we're going to get into, that people will come out with hate because they're they're angry that somebody actually has confidence at something bigger than a size 6,
When I first came into this work, so I'm at second career, did the corporate gig for 15 years, had a health issue, came into the world of health. And the first 3 years of my practice was a traditional clinical nutritionist in practice. And when this body of work came to me, health at every size and body positivity, I was angry because I had worked for 20 years dieting, like hardcore work, like the gym, the food, the everything. And now you come and you tell me that all of that wasn't necessary, that I don't have to, no, you're wrong. Like I was angry. It took me 6 months before opening the book. And start studying it. So I totally get those people on the internet or even people listening to this that are in that place and put so much effort and so much of their life and their self-worth is baked into that process.
Yes.
I come along and you're like, you don't have to suffer like me? That's not fair.
We all must suffer. Yes.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So, let's talk about body positivity and something you talk about, body neutrality. I want to know about that in a sec. But body positivity is definitely a conversation that I have had numerous debates about.
Okay.
I used to go to a gym where the owner of that gym, I was the only one who showed up for class that day, discussed openly how against body positivity he was. Because it was unhealthy, it was this, it was that, it was, we're celebrating people who have unhealthy habits. And my point to that was, number one, you don't know how healthy someone is by the size of, you could be equally as unhealthy as a size 0, many times are. But also, I believe that we need to feel good about who we are to get to a size that we're meant to be. So if that's a size 12, if that's a size 8, if that's a size 4, okay. But when you get there because you hate yourself or that you've deprived yourself and you judge yourself on every morsel that you put into your mouth, I just don't think that that's the way to weight loss. I believe if you are someone who's looking to lose weight, the first step is body positivity. But you go one step further with body neutrality. What does that mean?
Body positivity, if we look back at the word, right, it's mainly portrayed as loving our bodies. So to love our body, one must agree with every part of it and love every part of it. When we look at body positivity, how it's portrayed, that's how people feel it.
Okay.
As a woman who've lived in Western society, raised as a good girl, raised with the thin ideal, the idea of loving your belly rolls is like far, far away from what you even are considering.
Okay.
Second thing about body positivity is it's actually a movement that was born, the word body positivity was born in the 70s from Black women in fat acceptance. So in itself, body positivity is a movement made and created and engineered for Black women. Co-opting it as white women is not good.
I love you. Because that's... As white women, we have a history of co-opting things that other people have created and acting as if we came up with it. So
that's exactly what happened to body positivity. Started with Black women. Now it's all over whitewashed women.
Yes. Got it.
So just for my political personal value, I don't want to use this word, but from a procedure of how to help women, body neutrality says, hold on a minute. You don't need to love your belly roll. You need to be neutral about them. And as a woman, you are not your belly rolls. Your self-worth, your worth into this world has nothing to do with your external shell. Neutrality brings you to that middle space of detaching your personal worth from your external body and says you don't have to love everything. but you have to respect it.
Mm.
You have to feed your body. You have to take care of your body. You don't have to move your body because you want to lose weight. You have to move your body because that's what the human body requires, movement.
Right.
That's body neutrality.
I love that. And so we can actually wake up some days and not necessarily love what we're seeing in the mirror.
No.
And still feel like a valuable human.
Exactly.
Imagine that.
Well, that's how we get confidence. Like women are asking, like, how can you be confident in a larger body as a woman? Well, confidence is an emotion. It's a feeling. It has nothing to do with my external shell. It has to do with the way that I think.
Yes.
The way that I think about myself. That's what creates confidence.
Right.
So if my thoughts about myself or that my worth has nothing to do with my physical body, but has to do with my intelligence, for an example, or my values, then I can be confident at any size, any look also.
Right. That's so true. So what would you say to those people, though, who are maybe listening and going, yeah, but if you're a certain size, you're not healthy?
Well, that's a whole other conversation. So what you said earlier can sum it up. One's health has nothing to do with their body weight. Now I can hear you, but on the news, they say blah, 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 right?
Well, even your doctor may say.
Absolutely. So first place to start is to acknowledge that we live in a fat phobic society. Okay, so let's start with that. What is fat phobia? Fat phobia is the fear of fatness, the fear of being, quote, overweight, end of quote, right? That fear that we are socialized to very young, right? Especially as women, we're socialized that being fat is the worst thing that can happen to you as a woman. Our entire society is built around this concept that we look at the industry of clothing, of fashion, beauty, medical industry. There's a huge amount of money that is made in the medical industry on the fear of fatness, either through surgery and medical pills and so forth. So recognize that your desire to lose weight is a representation of how our society is built. Two, it's built into our medical system. Up to the beginning of the 1900s, body weight had never been part of one's health. It got baked into the context of health in the mid 1900s as diet culture started to arise.
Interesting.
Women were going to their doctors saying, I want to lose weight. And then it became part of it. And then, I mean, I could go through the history of BMI. Then I can even look at research. There's a big research that was put forward in 2016 on 40,000 individuals. That's a huge study. And the results were exactly what we in our field have been saying. Independent of body weight, we have the same ratio on health marker with people in the quote obese category and unquote, or the normal weight. Okay, so research is even showing it. So why does it keep showing up in the doctor's office? Because our doctors are fat phobic, just like the rest of the population.
Right. But I mean, listen, I'm not a doctor. I'm only going with what I've heard. So please educate me. But what about things like type 2 diabetes, hypertension? I mean, look at COVID alone, where many people who, at least what I'm reading, again, not a doctor, have not done the research. But what we're being told is people who are overweight, obese, are having a tougher time. How do you speak to that? Like, I'm all for body neutrality, living in a body that you feel good in, you know, moving because you should move, eating things that are nutritious for you, but not restricting yourself. Like, I'm all in. But how do you speak to that when disease, at least the medical community, is tying disease to our weight?
So I'll go back to what I just said. Number one, right? How we create the study. We create the research with the pre-assumption that fat is bad. Second thing we want to look at is when we put out these studies, right? When we look at the studies, we have an entire marketing industry that picks out what it wants from the study. COVID is being a prime example of that. Very small study work coming out. And then the first thing that we pull out of the study is the small ratio of people that have COVID that are, quote, obese, end of quote, right? that ratio is the same ratio than in the regular population. So for example, 20% of people with COVID were obese, when if you look at the regular population, 20% of the population of people are obese. But what we focus on is the word obese and 20%. Marketing headlines are built in to support this information. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Because when you look at the research, there is no causal effect, meaning obesity caused type 2 diabetes. Not one single research has that as a conclusion.
Really?
Yeah, none. What we see in the study, when we know how to read the study, what we see is that weight is associated or a risk for type 2 diabetes. But the risk is the same as the ratio in the population.
Interesting.
There is not one study that shows causal effect weight to disease. It's always an association or correlation. Right. Causation versus correlation is two different things.
Interesting.
But we highlight that.
Right. I mean, that's programmed in us that obesity leads to hypertension, type 2 diabetes, heart disease.
Absolutely.
All of those things.
But so let me ask you another question, Jackie. In your circle of people around you, and everybody listening to this, do think about that. In your circle around you, look at the people that are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
For example, if you have, are they a bunch of people at normal weight and a bunch of people at higher weight? Think of breast cancer, which is a very dear and near subject to all of women, right? When we look at breast cancer, which on the news and the outlet said to be associated with obesity, right? Look around you. Women who have experienced breast cancer, are they in all weight range?
Yes. Well, the ones that I know, yes.
In all weight category. So if we go against what we're hearing, what we're socialized to in the marketing, then if weight was causing breast cancer or diabetes, then all the people at a higher weight would have diabetes and breast cancer. If we follow that logic.
Right.
If it's a causal effect.
Yes. So I have a genetic mutation for breast cancer, BRCA1, which gave me an 87% chance of getting breast cancer in my lifetime and a 50% chance of getting ovarian cancer in my lifetime. So I am a firm believer that two people obviously can have the exact same, like someone could smoke a pack of cigarettes a day until they're 100 years old, and someone else can smoke a pack of cigarettes a day or not smoke at all and, die at 30. We're all individuals. We're all unique individuals. So I think that there are genetic markers and things within us. But I have to admit, I think I still have to really look into my beliefs that a certain BMI, because I've been told, is technically unhealthy. Like I even think about my husband's health insurance, where every year they'll give you money to pay your medical bills. And one of the tests to get $100 would be to come under this number, this BMI number.
Absolutely.
Like that it's literally you make money if you're under a certain BMI.
They're rewarding the behavior that they want to see.
Right.
But not the behavior that is best for you as a person, but like we can get into, again, politics, but the behavior that the system wants to uphold.
Right.
So interesting you talk about insurance, because do you know that the BMI was created by the insurance industry?
Oh, really?
The 1970s insurance industry needed a way of graduate people in certain category. And then the BMI came because before 1970s, the BMI was not a point of discussion anywhere.
Right. I don't remember BMI as a child. Yeah.
Didn't exist. The insurance industry co-opted the BMI. And then, the medical industry, the insurance industry, and the pharma industry are all like three brothers from the same mother, right?
Right.
Co-opted into the medical industry. And now it's a way of evaluating one's health.
Interesting.
But what about everything else that makes health?
Yeah. Like
weight, food, and exercise. If you look at studies upon the determinant of one's health, food and exercise are only 15% of what determines a person's health.
Wow. What are the other things?
We can think about social determinant. So for example, you were talking about genetic. Don't quote me on this number, but I think genetic is 22 or 23% of one's health versus 15%, which is food and exercise.
Right.
Your genetic pool has a bigger role to play in your health than what you put on your plate.
Interesting. Now, when you talk about nutrition, because you know, that is your background, you're not talking about eating Twinkies all day and like that you're just as healthy as everyone else, right?
Absolutely. You're such a good interviewer because you're asking me the question that is on most women's mind. Meaning that, so I challenge everyone to go on Google or on Instagram and do hashtag intuitive eating. All you're going to see is donut and pizza, right? The people put intuitive eating, like as a whole, as eating Twinkie and pizza.
Yeah.
Intuitive eating says, if that's what you want to do, go for it. But I challenge you, Jackie, to spend a whole day eating, but nothing but donuts. You tell me how that feels.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Right? Intuitive eating says, we trust you, Jackie, and we trust your body to make the right choice. Instead of, here's the rule, the external rules, we're going to tell you what to do. We're saying, no, we claim back our power. If I want to eat donuts, I'll do. I guarantee you won't.
That's so interesting. You're absolutely right, because for the most part, even if when we get the kids donuts on a weekend or something, I don't usually have one, mostly because sugar makes me either fall asleep, like immediately. It's so weird. Or it makes me a little bit ragey. It gets me a little jacked up. Like it makes me feel like crap. So I don't really do sugar a lot. But that being said, if you tell me that I can't have sugar, I'm going to do sugar all day, every day.
That is exactly what research is showing.
Yeah.
Right? We hear a lot about, for example, sugar addiction, right? Sugar is addictive. Well, okay, cool. Let's go see the research and let's see what research is telling us. So first of all, we're not allowed to do research on human by hyperfeeding sugar. So it's a study on rats. So we look at rats, 3 core groups, rats, I was going to say people, but rats that are given access.
I know some people who are rats, so it's all good.
We give it full access to sugar to rats. Like we put a sugar water, they can have as much as they want. Another group, we say you can have it and then you can't, which typically is dieting, right? In and out, in and out.
Yes.
And another one we never give them. Guess what the behavior of the rats are?
The ones who can't have it want it.
Exactly what you described. They're addicted to it.
Yeah.
Those who have access to it, you know what happened? They do it a lot at first. And then when they realize they can have it when they want to, they just go with it very gradually, which is exactly what happened when you learn intuitive eating.
Yeah.
The first month, you're like, I can have everything. The chips, the ice cream, like everything you've restricted, carbs, right? The keto people will have a lot of carbs. And then it just dwindles down. Because the brain now is retrained to say, oh, like you can have it when you want. So next time you want it, you can have it. Okay, we're safe now.
Right. That's exactly right, in that when I have something that I'm quote unquote allowing, doing my little finger quotes, I will eat a lot of it because I say to myself, I'm only doing it this one time.
Yes.
And if I could have it anytime I want, I maybe might not have the entire bag of salt and vinegar chips.
Yes.
Maybe.
We call that the Last Supper syndrome.
Yes.
You know, when you're about to go on a diet, right? You eat all the things until you feel terrible because you know Monday morning you go back on a diet, right?
Oh, that's so true. So true. So when someone works with you,
Yeah.
they come to you, obviously food is an issue as far as mentally.
Yes.
Let's just say someone comes in, they're the ideal model client for you.
Yeah.
What kind of result do you see from them and in what period of time?
So the first question is what kind of results? Freedom and complete empowerment, imposter syndrome gone. You know, when you think you have to show up in your life being someone else because you got to make sure that everything is right on every angle, that is gone. So I want to say it into one word, is empowerment. Then 2, the craziness around food, gone.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the crazy, like wanting the chip, not having the chip, thinking about chips all the time.
Now I want chips. I'm just telling you.
Yeah. I'm giving you the permission to go get chips.
This episode brought to you by Salt and Vinegar Chips.
So we have food freedom. So what we do is we free up our mental space to worry about much more important things. I want women to go on a mission, like go solve the world problem. Like I'm going to make a whole bunch of room in your space and go conquer the world. Go achieve your goals that have nothing to do with you restricting food or shrinking your body or looking younger. Freeing that space. 3, confidence. Right? Because the way we approach it, so I work with women that are successful and that have an ability to create things in their life, to achieve things, either through their corporate career or their businesses. Women that know they can be successful, but in that area of food and body, secretly, they know they're out of control.
Yeah.
So we rewire their mind to take this ability to be successful. And then we say, okay, let me teach you how to do it with food and body. We create confidence, not by the size, the shape, or the external, but by the way women think. And a woman who's confident in herself is a dangerous person in a good way. Right? You can do anything. You can show up fully in life.
Yes. Especially a woman over 40 who's confident, because we have been through some things where we know that whatever comes at us, we've handled worse, probably. We've handled people, we've handled personalities, and the bullshit meter, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to do that because that is culture. And this is truly who I am and what I want. And so really just having conversations like this to help us all step further into our power. And you could feel the world shifting. You're in Canada, I'm in the US, but we can feel the world shifting as a collective. And I think it's amazing. And the work that you're doing is so important because you're right. I'm the first to admit, like, I could have all the success in the world. I could achieve this and do that. And I'll still be like, oh, but I still weigh this.
Voila.
So clearly there's something wrong with me.
Imagine if we get that out of you.
Right. Imagine.
Right? Right? That's the thing. Like we would be like patriarchy would be over. Like,
right.
And that's how patriarchy keeps holding women right now, because we've gained so much power as women.
Yes.
What's holding full on equality is ourselves and our relationship to the machine we're in, like that you're the instrument you're in, which is your body.
Right.
Magic happens.
Absolutely. And I'd go a step further and, okay, we've recognized the patriarchy, that it's set up for men, that women have to fight even harder. But now we've acknowledged it. Now we have to really, as women, look at all the programming that we've been through so we don't perpetuate it.
Oh, love that. I have the goosebump. So I want all the women listening to hear me out here. We have been dieting, right? Our generation, our mother's generation, not so much our grandmother. It started with our mom and us, like two big generation of women dieting and causing a lot of suffering in our own body and our confidence. The only way this is going to change for your daughter and your granddaughter is with us. Yeah. We have to release for ourselves the shackle of diet culture and go and conquer the world, because we cannot wait for the weight loss industry and the beauty industry to change things.
Right.
We want the next generation of women to not repeat the cycle of dieting and lack of confidence and self-doubt. We have to do our work.
You're absolutely right. And, you know, as a mother of 3 boys, I believe that it's important for them as well to see women of all different looks and see beauty in women and all of that. And I feel like their generation, 14, 15, 16, they look at the world very differently. My boys talk about the qualities of girls that they like, and it's actually never about her appearance. Like I've never heard she looks like this, or this is why I like her, or she's hot, or I'm sure that, you know, they may talk about that with peers or whatever, but they talk about other things about girls that they like. And that makes me so happy. And I think there's a lot to learn from the generations that are coming up behind us, starting with millennials who are perfectly comfortable with self-care. And it took us 40, 50 years to get there. And then, you know, Gen Z, they just look at the world differently. And I think that I have some hope. I have some hope that girls and women will grow up knowing their power and celebrating it in a way that we had to work really, really hard before we got there.
And not agree more. And that's why we're seeing the uprising in the word intuitive eating and body positivity, is because of the younger generation who's saying, I'm not going to have it. Like,
Yeah.
Dieting is my mother's. It's my grandmother's. Like, I'm not having it. And by the way, all genders are equal. And by the way, there's maybe not even gender. And by the way, like, all races are equal. Like, all those movements of liberation are being pushed right now by the younger generation.
Yeah, I love watching it. And I love that you're doing this work because I saw in your bio that you were 12 when you had your first diet. I have 5 sisters and 7 brothers, but that's a whole other story. 2 of my sisters are twins and they're 10 years older than I am. One of them was 19 years old. And I remember her eating yogurt. And it was probably a yogurt now in hindsight that had a ton of sugar in it.
They were low fat.
Right? But she was quote unquote on a diet. And so I was 9 and I would ask like, oh, can I get yogurt so I can go on a diet? Like I would watch her and I would watch my sisters constantly and, you know, other relatives and other friends and put our value in our weight and in our size and our appearance. And I think that enough is enough.
Yeah.
Turning 50, I've beat the shit out of myself long enough. And I think if you're listening, you probably have also beat the shit out of yourself. And so don't you think it's time we stop? I think so.
I'm here for you. That's what I want. I want women like you and I of our generation saying like, F this, like enough. And that's who I'm seeing. I'm seeing women our age, like 35 plus is like, okay, I'm done now. Like, I don't know what is like, you teach me what else, but I'm done. Like, I don't know what to do, but I'm done.
Awesome.
That's what I do.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm going to link to all the things you do in the show notes. Head on over and see what Stephanie's doing. Also follow your Instagram. Your Instagram's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, and it's a lot of entertainment in your intelligence. Like it's funny you were talking about that because I just posted a stat. I'm going to pull it here. I'm going to read it for you. We are having a debate since yesterday. There's a stat that came out that said 45% of adolescent girls reported that their mother encouraged them to diet.
45% of adolescent girls reported that their mothers encouraged them to diet.
Exactly.
Wow.
1 out of 2 girls in the 1st to 3rd grade want to be thinner. 50% of our young girls in grade 1 to 3 have a desire to be thinner.
Wow.
Not done yet, but 75% of my audience says, yeah, their mom encouraged them to diet.
Wow.
That's where it starts. That's why my mission in that second phase of my life is to help transform the mom, because the mom will go back and impact dozens of little girls, either through their daughter, their granddaughter, the conversation with their friend. Like, this is the grassroots movement that we have to do as a group of women.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Stephanie. This has been eye-opening, to say the least. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. We'll definitely be talking again. Thank you so much for listening. We keep the conversation going in our free and private Facebook group, so make sure you join us over there. Also, if you have any questions, comments, wishes, hopes, dreams of something you'd like to hear on 40 Thrive, send us an email at hello@40thrive.com. Until next time, take care and keep thriving.